Today, we're going to be talking about 5 underrated Mega Evolutions I think you should be trying in Pokemon Legends EA ranked battles. Today, we're going to be talking about 5 underrated Mega Evolutions I think you should be using in Pokemon Legends EA ranked battles. So, to kick us off here, we're going to be starting off with a personal favorite, and that is Charizard X. Now, Charizard X does play really interesting, differently, I should say, to Charizard Y, right? And a big reason for that is it does change its typing. Now, typically, the flying type in this game mode is really good, right? It's a very solid pivot into things like Garchomp, especially if they aren't running things like Rock Coverage, right? And also having the option to Mega does also allow you to fight better into things like Gyarados, right? Now, what makes this Pokemon so good? We'll start with, again, Fire Dragon's a very, very good offensive typing. It hits a lot of the things at the top of the meta, and it also has access to Swords Dance. And there is this cool combination where you can go for Dragon Rush, you can go for Flare Blitz, and you can go for Thunder Punch. And this basically allows you to hit everything that's good in the metagame, right? You've got Garchomp, which you can hit with Dragon Rush, right? You've got the Excadrills, which you can hit with the Flare Blitzes. You've got the Gyaradoses, which you can hit with the Thunder Punches, and then again, you start going down the line, right? You got things like Metagross, which is also incredibly good. Again, you can hit it with the Blitz. The Fairies do not want to eat a +1 Blitz. You know, Gardevoir is going to go down to a +1 Flare Blitz. So there is a lot of things this Pokemon does hit for super effective damage in the metagame. It also has some other good coverage moves as well, right? You know, if you were someone who, say, potentially wanted something like Rock Slide, that is always an option. Rock Slide is definitely a really, really solid move. I've even seen moves starting to pick up things like Will-O-Wisp, right? You can run it kind of like as a support. You know, I'm not saying this is the best move on it, but having something like Will-O-Wisp just to burn an incoming Garchomp, especially in base form, is really, really solid. You've also got access to strong moves as well, like Earthquake. It gets access to Iron Tail. There's just a lot of moves Charizard gets that makes it really good. And I think when you have the option to just, you know, get a +1 onto a 130 attack stat, which again, like 130 attack isn't anything too crazy. Like, it's solid by you know, don't get me wrong, it's good. Like, you hit 200 attack, but when you get that +1, you go up to 300 damage. It does just absurd amounts. And when you have strong stabs like Flare Blitz and Dragon Rush, both base 100 and 120, you can just pick up a lot of KOs that people just aren't expecting. So, carrying on with the theme of Pokemon really good into the top Metamons, we have Mega Abomasnow. Now, Abomasnow did get really unlucky because I think this Mon was a Freeze Dry away from being a legitimate top tier threat. If it had Freeze Dry and had ways to hit Gyarados for ×4 damage, I think it would have been busted. But in saying that, this Mon is still really, really good. One of the beautiful things about Abomasnow is it just has insane bulk and very, very good offenses, right? 90, 105, 105 is really solid, and 132 into both attacking stats is also really good, especially because this Pokemon can kind of function as a mixed attacker. Now, it doesn't have the best ways to buff up its stats, right? It does have access to Curse, which is really cool. It also has Sword Stance, but I do think the special sets are the way to go. So in terms of special, right, you have Ice Beam. Oh, so that's Ice Punch. You have Ice Beam and you have Blizzard, right? They are like your two best, you know, ice type moves, right? So they're very, very good. And then also on the grass side of things as well, you have some good options, right? You got things like Leaf Storm, you got things like Solar Beam, right? Typically, you're not going to run all of these, of course. You only want to really probably run one of each. But really, like, picking, you know, one of these two, either Ice Beam or Blizzard, one of Leaf Storm or Solar Beam, very, very solid. Personally, I like the Blizzard and I like the Solar Beam. I do really like Ice Shard in particular on this Mon as well. Again, this is where it comes down to it, you know, being a solid mixed attacker, because again, you do probably want to just opt for something like this, where your stats will be something like, probably not Modest, actually. You want Quiet, don't you? Yeah, you want Quiet, because again, that speed stat's so bad. It's like, you want like Quiet max here, and then it still allows you to have a decent Ice Shard. And I did the calcs on it, like, you will still do 50% to a Garchomp with an Ice Shard, and it comes out so quick. It's just really, really good at picking things off on low HP. And then basically for your last move, I do recommend Earth Power, right? Earth Power is really, really solid. It allows you to hit the Steel types, it allows you to hit the Fire types as well, which this Mon can struggle into. And again, its defensive profile is just really solid, right? You resist ground moves, right? You obviously threaten 4 times super effective damage into, you know, the big dragon types in the meta. You're also not awful into Gyarados. You're not the best, but if you can, you know, hold off, wait for it to Mega, then things like Solar Beam will do ridiculous damage. And overall, I think this Mon is just really solid. And again, there is also like always the option as well of running like a physical set, because this guy does get, you know, Earthquake, he does get Wood Hammer, and I believe he also gets Ice Punch. Unfortunately, he doesn't get Ice Shard. But again, you could run something like this and potentially even drop either Ice Shard or Ice Punch for Swords Dance or Curse as well. Both of which are honestly fine, right? Like a set like this where you go say like, hey, I'm just going to get +1 on Ice Shard, it is probably not too bad. Like, I think ideally you probably still want Ice Punch just to threaten the one-shot into Garchomps, but it is still a really solid set. So the next Mon I want to talk about here is Drampa. Now, Drampa's Mega is one of my absolute personal favorites. I love this thing's design so much, and its stat spread is honestly pretty good. Again, it's very slow, but that's completely fine because it doesn't need that speed stat, right? The speed only affects the cooldown in your moves, and Drampa's a Mon that honestly, it's just so bulky and it hits so hard that you can kind of play around without it, right? So again, typically on a set like this, you are probably going to want to run Modest. Drampa also has access to Calm Mind, which is really good. And then the best part about this Pokemon, in my opinion, is it's a normal type. Normal types have just absurd coverage, right? Obviously, it has access to Draco Meteor and it has access to Hyper Voice. They are its two primary stab moves. But then again, like you just look at the list here, right? Let's just go like special moves. Because typically, I would say the moves you want to run on this thing are probably Ice Beam and Thunderbolt are probably like the two best ones, right? But again, it's a normal type. You look down the list, it gets Blast, Grass Knot, Solar Beam, Blizzard, Fire Blast, Hurricane, Hydro Pump, Thunder, Heat Wave, Earth Power, like, you know, Surf, Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, like any form of coverage you want, this mon gets it. And as I said, typically I do think this is the way to go. I am hopefully going to get a video out with it later this weekend. There's a team I found that I thought was really good that was running this set here, just Calm Mind 3 attacks. They did opt to drop Draco, but I don't hate it, right? Because again, you've got things like Thunderbolt, which will allow you to hit the Gyarados, and then you've got Ice Beam that lets you hit all the dragons. Like, yes, Draco Meteor is good at hitting all of the dragons, but all of the dragons right now that are at the top of the meta are things like Garchomp, Salamence, Dragonite, all of which are 4 times weak to Ice Beam. So a +1 Ice Beam from 160 base attack will absolutely nuke him. But again, the beautiful thing about this is you can just run anything, right? I've seen people run it with Fire Blast. I've seen people run it with Hurricane, right? There's so many options this mon has, and its stats are just so good. That it's really tough to, like, you know, put it to the side, right? Like, it's good, yeah. Especially, like, if you play Calm Mind on a Reflect team where, like, you know, you pass it, like, dual screens, bring it in, Calm Mind, like, it's just so hard to kill, and it has so much coverage that it can really just do anything. So now, speaking of screens, there is another Pokemon that I think has an incredibly good matchup into screens, and that is Mega Scizor. Now, the beautiful thing with Mega Scizor is it actually has a few different sets it can run, right? So typically Swords Dance is its go-to setup move, but it does also have access to Curse to also buff up that defensive stat. Now, I will say the only thing with Curse is Curse's uptime is about like 50-50, right? So it's like you use Curse, and then by the time you run out of the buffs, you know, Curse is up again, but it doesn't last that long, right? Whereas Swords Dance, on the other hand, lasts double the time. So it is very good. You can click Swords Dance and you will have that buff for a very long time, and it makes it a lot easier to play them on. And that's personally why I do prefer Swords Dance over Curse if I do have the option. But again, speaking of screens, this mon has, oh, what have I done there? I've gone into full screen. I tend to do that apparently all the time. But you have access to Brick Break. And Brick Break of 150 base attack when you're +1 is just absurd. And then again, this one, you know, it has decent coverage, right? I think Lunge is a really cool option because, again, it gives you that -1 attack while also still being a strong stab move. You've also got access to X Scissor as well. It has U-Turn if you want to play around with that because, again, the way switching works in this game, or sorry, switching moves, like U-Turn is, you know, you kind of hit the target and then you jump straight back to the trainer. It's like, it's really good at dodging moves, and it is like, because of that, I do think it is like really, really cool. And then, of course, as well, you got things just like Iron Head, right, as your primary stab. Unfortunately, it doesn't get like insane coverage moves. There are options like Aerial Ace. I believe it also has Knockoff as well. I think that's it. Like maybe Close Combat if you want to run Close Combat. Like if you're not worried about screens, like you do have access to CC. And I do think you really want the fighting type move on this mon, just so you can hit steel types, right? You know, having a way to hit things like Excadrill is really good. And you're also a Pokemon as well that you just don't care that much about the top meta mons. Like again, like when you're rocking 140 base defense, it's like, yeah, you don't really care about a neutral Earthquake from a Garchomp. You resist its Dragon type moves. Same goes for Excadrill, right? Like you resist the Steel, you're neutral to the ground, and you can set up and, you know, threaten them with a strong fighting move. You know, if it's Garchomp, you can lunge it, stuff like that, right? You know, you get their attack down to -1. And same thing, right? This mon does kind of struggle into Gyarados, would be the only thing I'd worry about. But again, like you don't care that much about Gyarados. Like with this much defense, sorry, you're able to live an attack. And honestly, I think it's just really good, especially with every team having a Fairy type. Like you want a Steel type. And if, you know, say for example, you've already got Garchomp in your team, you don't want to run Excadrill. I think it is a really good secondary option. So the final mon I want to talk about here is actually another Steel type, and that is Steelix. Now, I know what you're going to say. Steelix is kind of just works Excadrill. And honestly, you are right. The big issue with Steelix, in my opinion, is its base form, right? Having base form Steelix only having 85 attack really does hurt this mon. But as a Mega, going up to 125 attack with 230 defense and access to Curse, I personally can't look past this mon. I actually think there is a lot of potential here, right? It has both Earthquake and Dig, right? So you've got really strong ground type stabs, which I think is incredibly, incredibly important right now. You've also got access to all of the rock moves, right? You have things like Stone Edge, you have things like Rock Slide, right? So you've got ways to hit Pokemon that are in the air if you want. But the main thing going for it, in my opinion, right, is the fact that it also has access to all of the elemental fangs. You know, something like Thunder Fang, Ice Fang is just such a good way to catch things like Garchomp off guard, right? You know, you just click Ice Fang, you walk up to it, they're not expecting anything, bang, you hit them with an Ice Fang, you one-tap them, right? Especially at +1 in Mega Form. And again, like, when you've got like 230 base defense, you just take no damage. Like, oh, super effective Garchomp? It's like, yeah, that's all right. You know, obviously you've got to run from the fire types. Things like Chandelier do scare you a little bit, and, you know, maybe Charizard Y. But, like, this thing's physical defense is just so absurd. Like, if you're not, like, a Mega Garchomp, like, even the Mega Garchomp's not one-shotting you, right? Like, you're comfortably living a Mega Garchomp, you know, probably even at +1. I'd have to do the calc on it. But I feel like a set like this, like, max HP with this much defense, like, I don't think it matters. Like, I don't think a Mega Garchomp is even picking you up from that range, if I'm being honest. But, yeah, look, Steelix is just a really cool mod. Like, again, the biggest issue Steelix has, in my opinion, is that it's, like, there are better options, right? Like, there are, you know, there is Excadrill. Excadrill is, you know, for all intents and purposes, a better mod. It has a better HP stat. You know, the special defense stat is a little bit worse, and obviously the defense is way worse, but the attack stat is higher. The speed stat's a lot higher. So, like, there is a reason you play Excadrill. But I could just see a world where Steelix with Curse Man on, like, a screens team could be so good, and just having those elemental fangs are so damn good. Because, again, like, one of the best things about Best of One, and you'll actually see it, I think, in the video that should hopefully be up after this, I played a game with Hippowdon, and it was a very similar set where it was, I believe I was Dig double elemental fang, and it was like, you set up a curse, and then, like, the Garchomp, or, like, the, you know, the Gyarados, they sit in front of you, and they're just like, oh, like, it's a Hippowdon, what's it gonna do? And then you just hit it with a +1 Ice Fang, +1 Thunder Fang, and then you just one-tap them, and it's like, oh, shit, like, that's what it's gonna do. It's, in Best of One, you know, ranked battles online, where, like, it's closed team sheet, it's just such a scary mon, and, like, it can really just do a lot of work. Anyway, guys, that's going to be it for this one. Just a nice, quick video here. Let me know down below which megas you think are really underrated. There are definitely a few more I wanted to make for this list. You know, originally when I was kind of planning it out, I told myself we're only going to do 5 megas. I ended up having a list of about 9. And I was like, you know, let's trim it down. Let's just talk about some now, and then, you know, we can revisit it again in the near future. But yeah, man, I'm having a lot of fun with this game mode, guys. I hope you guys are too. And yeah, let me know down below which megas you think are underrated. But anyway, that's it for this one. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.